Welcome back to the Paddle and Fin Podcast Network. We're brought to you by Yak Gadgets. For all your fine quality kayak fishing accessories, go to yakgadget.com. Pelican cases, cooler, and lighter. Go to pelican.com. And the 153 Bait Company. For all your hard and soft bait needs, go to the 153angler.com. Now let's join our special guest around the campfire. Welcome back, everyone, to the Feather and Fur Podcast. Today, our special guest is Tate Abler, a fellow Griff owner and another upland hunter, so we're going to bring him right in. Here we go. Welcome to the show, Tate.
Hey, Brad. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Nice, warm summer days coming into fall. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's feeling a little fallish every morning. The last couple mornings, isn't it?
It is. I'm excited. I mean, I'm always excited to get ready for the bird hunting season, get the dog out. I mean, a couple weeks, we're looking at duck season already starting. It's crazy.
Yeah, second weekend in September does that open up? We're looking at 18th for the woodcock grouse opener. So
it's coming up real quick. I'm hoping the weather turns a little more. I mean, it's still pretty hot during the day, but like you said, in the mornings, it's definitely cool enough to run the dogs.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think this morning I got in the truck, it was like 53, 54 degrees. So it's hard to deny that fall's coming. Christmas is in the air every morning, finally.
I'm ready. I mean, nice foggy mornings, fall's coming, leaves changing colors. Yeah. My dog's feeling it. I mean, you can tell, like, she's got a little more pep in her step when we take her for a walk at night, or if I'm running her out on the river, swimming her, keeping her in shape. She knows something's coming. She was pretty birdie last night, like, fooling around in some sagebrush.
Yeah, oh yeah. It's hard to deny that they're ready to rock and roll too. That's for sure. I think they can sense it. You know what? I think they read stuff off of us. So if you start to act a little differently or getting a little bit more excited, I think they're feeling that off. Yeah, and you start to work them more. So instead of just getting up and going to work in the morning, you're starting to run a little bit in the morning and stuff like that. So I think they kind of figure out what's going on. I
agree. I think you're right that they feel that anticipation, and they also know something's coming because it went from being a lazy early summer to now we're putting some miles in and we're trying to get back in shape, her and I really. So you're trying to get you're trying to get that conditioning in, and pretty soon here, you got a wired hair. I mean, you got a Griff as well. So we're both on the same page there. I mean, them early season burrs are a mess.
Yeah. It's funny because I've been a short hair guy my whole life. Well, not my whole life, but my since I was like 18, I've had short hairs. And then my wife wanted a Griff. I just primarily because she liked the way that they looked, and I was not prepared for that. I was not prepared for the early season woodcock. The first 2-3 weeks it's a total disaster.
Oh, it's a mess. I do know it's when your dog comes up to you and can't see you anymore because everything is matted completely around her eyes. Like, I carry a steel comb in my hunting vest just to take care of burrs in the field.
I've had it where her ear is welded to her eye. She can't even see, and it's crazy. But I was not prepared for that. So it's been a learning curve there alone. And then, short hairs and Griffs are different. So, they're a little bit more low-key dog, the Griff is, compared to the short hair.
Sure.
But they run hotter. I don't know if you've had, another breed other than a Griff, but it's like my Griff is so hot. Like, her body temperature must just, she has a lot of hair compared to the short hair. So I have to monitor that. So, when you say that the dogs understand that the weather's changing and hunting season is coming up, I totally think my Griff does, because she's not so hot anymore. She wants to be outside as opposed to, can I get back into the air conditioning here as soon as possible? So it was a total transformation for me just on that aspect of home.
I agree 100% there, because I came from a lab. I had a lab, which was a way better upland dog than a duck dog. That's how I wound up having such a passion for grouse and woodcock. He just was very high strung, and he was steady, but he's never steady enough for the blind. He'd get anxious. He'd want to run around, and I'd let him run because, he was anxious, and he was just going to frustrate me if I didn't let him burn some energy. But he took to the woods like a maniac. Like, he loved it. Like, I knew when we hunted a section, there wasn't a bird left behind. Like, I had 100% because he just was thorough. But that was a huge change for me because, I mean, it'd be a quick tick check after a hunt, and I was sipping on whiskey, and now it's like I'm two glasses of whiskey in by the time I got the burrs out, and I haven't even started the tick check yet.
Yeah. What made you decide to go from a lab to a pointer?
I know in my heart, I know I'm more of an upland hunter, and I wanted to start hunting over a pointing dog. I wanted a dog, though, that still could handle cold water. Mm-hmm. And my wife no longer wanted a dog that shed more. Like, she was tired of constantly vacuuming up hair or telling me to constantly vacuum up the hair. So I know I wanted something that was lower shedding, which a Griff is. I mean, they still shed, but they don't shed like a lab. I wanted something that could handle the colder Wisconsin winters, because we do a lot of, like, she'll come out with me ice fishing, but like really for like that cold water duck hunting, I wanted something that could handle that colder water. And I really wanted to make the transition to a pointer so I could maybe actually like hit a grouse occasionally.
Did it help?
No, not at all.
It doesn't.
Nope.
It's interesting to me because our stories are similar. I grew up with grouse, or with grouse and with labs. My dad had labs and golden retrievers, and I was too young to remember the golden retrievers for the most part. I remember them, but I don't remember behind them. I think I was too young, but I don't remember the burr issue. And my dad had chocolate labs, and I don't remember the burr issues. I don't remember him combing them out and all this. But when I turned, I was 19, I got my first short hair, and then it was like, it was completely to go from hunting behind a lab, which there's nothing wrong with it. Labs are amazing dogs, but they have in my opinion, and I don't ever want to start a debate, on it, but in my opinion, every dog has their place, right? It's just, to me, there's nothing more beautiful than a versatile dog working upland birds. Now, there's nothing more beautiful than a lab retrieving a duck that fell, 75 yards into the swamp and bringing a perfect retrieve to hand. There's nothing more beautiful than that as well. But in the upland world, versatile dogs are, to me, it's where it's at. So when I got that first short hair, it was lights out. There was no turning back for me. By admission, my first short hair was she was a great dog, but she's nothing like my current short hair and my current stuff. I just didn't know what I was doing. Wasn't involved in any clubs. I was kind of winging it. And so back then, my grouse percentages and woodcock percentage was so low. It was just the love of the sport. Those crisp mornings where you get out there and you hunt them, and just the love of that kept me coming back.
Sure,
so,
absolutely.
Kind of one of those stories that's pretty similar there. I have nothing against labs. I love them. As far as when I get older, I think I'll probably have labs again because, as well as I do, Griff is probably maybe a little better in a short hair, but they don't like to sit still. They like to go do stuff. They're off snuffing around in the lab, man. They'll just sit in the couch all day. That's all it's about, right? So.
Oh yeah, I will say that. I mean, my Griff has a pretty good on-off switch, but my lab, night and day difference there. I mean, I'd work him hard. He'd stay in shape. But if I wanted to be lazy, especially because I had him when I was younger, I got him in my early 20s, and there was plenty of mornings I was super hungover after a night at the bar, right? I mean, he'd totally get it. And he'd just lay up next to me on the couch and be like, "We're good today. I don't care." My Griff will be like pushing at me like, "Hey, are we going to go for a walk? Are you going to take me for a walk at least? Like, we need to do something."
Are we doing anything today? This is
right.
It. Yeah, and then my Griff is pretty laid back, and I'm pretty blessed. My starter, she's 4.5, and she likes to lay around in the day. I think it's an age thing, but as far as get up and go compared to my dad's lab, there's no comparison. My dogs are they're constantly at me. If it's time to eat, man, there's no fooling them. It's time to eat, So
I will say that my Griff though is not very food motivated. When I get out the food, she's running. But if I'm busy, we normally feed her at 5 at night when I get home from work. But if I'm busy or I come home late and my wife works from home and she's in a meeting or something and it hits 6 o'clock, she's still laying there. She's not bugging anyone, surprisingly. As soon as you get the food out, she's excited, but she'll never actually be like, "Hey, it's dinner time." Where my lab, he'd look at you and start barking. He'd be like, "I'm hungry. Feed me now."
As far with my two dogs, my short hair is much more food driven. I mean, if it's time to eat, she doesn't quit. She's there. She's in your leg, constantly butting you in the leg. She's
sure.
Griff, I think Rosie. So my Griff is Rosie, and my short hair is Ruby. Which, if I could make any suggestion, never name both of your dogs start with the same letter ever. It's horrible.
I can see that being an issue, especially for from a duck hunting experience. Like if you're like for steady, that's got to be really hard.
Well,
but
I generally hunt them alone, if that makes sense.
Sure. Nope, it does. Absolutely.
If I have, that was the main reason, besides my wife wanting a dog, that was the main reason I got 2 dogs, is it was to extend my weekends up north.
Yep.
If you run a dog for 2-3 hours in the morning and 2-3 hours in the afternoon for grouse, they're pretty beat up. And it's hard to do that for longer than maybe a day and a half, 2 days, maybe.
I agree.
Hard on a dog, you risk injury and stuff like that. So that's my favorite part about it. But if I'm up north for anywhere, even here, if I'm hunting for just a day, if I only have a day to get it done, I'll run them both at the same time. But it's hard. That's not their steady word, that's their go word. So
all right.
If I'm sending them to go retrieve, it's
sure.
Ruby or Rosie, and you tap them on the head, and it's, I say both of their names at the same time most of the time, because it's sometimes it doesn't really matter. Just say as long as it starts with an R and you're hitting one of them on the head, it doesn't matter. But
sure.
Don't ever do it.
Good to know. And I get that, because that's a release command, and that's real popular for most trainers to use the first name, the dog's name, as the release command. So I can really see that being yeah. I'd also mix it up probably half the time too.
It's hard at first, especially I remember when I first, because like I said, my first dog, I tried to wing it. And then when I got my second short hair, I joined the local NAVDA club.
Sure.
And then they, helped me with the tools that I needed to actually successfully train a bird dog once. And that was one of the things that they said. But I didn't know what to do. So it was like they gave me the opportunity, the tools to train my dog properly. And that was one of the things was, you start out by giving them their food, and then to teach them that they have to wait, and just give them their food, and then make them steady until you give them the release command. And it was their name. Now going back and doing it again, I would maybe switch it up with a different word and not their name.
All right.
I don't know if I would or not. Probably
sure.
not, because I'm so used to it. But it's one way to get around it. But I didn't know. You know what I mean? It was kind of weird at the time.
Right. But then if you use the same word for both dogs, you're in even a worse spot.
That's a good point too. Yeah. At least you use their name, then they each have their own name. So that
right.
makes sense too. So,
yeah. But I mean, NAVDA, and I didn't join NAVDA. I actually did go to a couple meetings. I have nothing NAVDA's great, but I rescued my Griff at 6. She was so far behind the curve that I just and she's already been hunting. So I just kind of brushed up on basic obedience, and she kind of is what she is. She's never, by the time I had other issues I needed to work on with her first before we focused on bird hunting. She was aggressive towards my lab, extremely aggressive towards other dogs, aggressive towards people, aggressive towards kids. So I had some emotional trauma I had to work out first before we started really working on hunting stuff. So I never got to that next step with her, but I did work with a local HRC, and I can't say enough. Clubs are, if you're going to train a dog yourself, I would never do it without a club.
I'm not saying I'm a dog trainer by any means. I know my way around a bird dog at this point. It's been 5 years since I've been doing this. I train daily for the most part. But I would never do it without the help of a club. They give you the tools, they give you the resources, they give you the knowledge. There's always somebody there to lend a helping hand. So,
right.
Good for you for understanding what the dog needed before just jumping in and deciding that you were going to have a gung-ho bird dog, because you can't have a dog in the house, and what's the point of you having it, right?
Exactly. I wouldn't say she was abused, but she was neglected. When we got her mats were so bad you couldn't tell the difference between ear skin and hair.
Ooh.
It took days of constant slow grooming her just to get her coat back to a halfway decent coat. And her tail didn't wag for almost a year. It was now, you should last night we had her on the boat. She's got her head in the wind, tail wagging, running up and down the sand. She's happy now. We still have to be careful around other dogs. She's vocal first though. like she'll vocalize like, hey, get away from me before she goes full on crazy dog mode.
Mm-hmm.
And then still have to be slightly careful around kids because if they push her too far, but again, I've got her to the point where she's vocal at least. So, I mean, we've made great progress, and now she's not like, I just look at her and I'm like, man, you would have been an amazing dog if I would have had you at 6 or 12 weeks old.
Yeah, you know, the funny thing is I heard a quote from one of my bird training mentors. I'm going to screw it up and get at that, but it basically goes along the lines of the best bird dog in the world is one that's never even seen a bird. So, I mean, like, if you think of how many dogs, you know, everybody wants the best bird dog. That's why I did this. That's why I'm where I am right now. But there's so many dogs out there that you're never going to have the best. The best bird dog probably is living in downtown Chicago and gets walked around town on a leash. You know what I mean? It's impossible. You have to roll with the punches. You have to take the dog that you have. You know, I'm not one of those guys that say, I don't take a dog, and if I don't like it, I'll sell it on the river and get a new dog. When I buy a dog, that's my dog. It's a dog. Unless something happens, like the kid, whatever, we'll worry about that when it comes. But it's one of those deals where you did a great job. You did exactly what you should do. Is if you have a dog that you have to leave in a crate all the time, first of all, that sucks for the dog. That sucks for you. And then I don't think you're going to have a good dog in the field either, because you don't have that bond. You don't have time that you spend together all the time. So that's awesome that you did that. And I think rescue dogs, I'm not saying I am or I'm not a rescue guy, but I've never had a rescue. But I think they get a bad rap. Like, everybody thinks that these, you know, like, oh, you're just inheriting somebody else's problems. And, you know, I think sometimes that's true if the dog is too far gone. Sometimes you can't see that. They always have their quirks. But like my Griffin, she has quirks, and I got her, you know, I brought her home when I was supposed to.
Sure.
She's got separation anxiety horribly. I don't know if it's a Griff thing, because most people that have Griff say that their Griffs don't like to be away from them. But, you know, she's got that. They all have their quirks. So
yeah. See, my Griff isn't too bad on the separation anxiety. We'll see when COVID's done, because my wife's been at home for 18 months almost now. But before, I mean, she'll still go and just lay down underneath the desk in the office by herself, not around us. Or she'll go in her kennel, because her kennel's always open in her bedroom. She'll go sleep in her kennel for hours. Like, she'll just go on her own. Like, she's very independent that way. And it was even more so when my lab was still around. Like, when she would just go disappear in the kennel for hours at night after we would take him for walks, or I'd run them in the yard, like work them in the yard, like throwing bumpers or whatnot. She'd just go and be like, all right, this is my own time. So that way there, we've been pretty happy with that. Like, pretty blessed there. Like, at least we're not dealing with like massive separation anxiety on top of all the rest of the stuff. But when you say quirks, I mean, don't like anything in a white coat, man. She'll run. She will run. Like, the vet is a complete nightmare. Like, if you ever want to see true primal fight or flight in a dog, come with me when I try to take my dog. It is primal fight or flight. Like, it's to the point where she wants to like chew my hand off to get away from me, or hide underneath my legs to save her.
And you got to wonder why. Wonder why that is. You know what I mean? And they all have that. They all have their things that my short hair got bit like in the rear end by a bee one time, and now she, like, if there's bugs around, she goes nuts. She just starts like chomping at them and jumping around and doing this, and it's like, it's annoying, but you can't blame her, you know. So it's it's funny. They all have their quirks. They're
agreed.
Just like humans, right?
Yeah, everyone's different, and that's like the nice thing. Like, when you work with a club, and like I said, I met all the people at my local NAVTA chapter. I went to a couple of their training sessions before I even got a Griff, before I rescued this one, because I was on the list to get a puppy. I wanted to like introduce myself with the club, so you get the feel for the club. And the nice thing about that and HRCs for like your retrievers and all that other stuff is there's always someone there normally that's already experienced what you're going through and can help you work through it. Like, and then when you get that experience, you can help the next guy below you. Like, hey, my dog had this exact same issue in the field. Here's how we worked through it. And there's all that common knowledge, and there's this group of people that have the exact same goal in mind, which is to make a great bird dog. Not the best bird dog. I mean, everybody wants the best dog, right? But most people are realistic. At the end of the day, you just want to make your dog be the best you can.
Yeah. And, you know, my first short hair was trying to do it myself. We would go to, like, for instance, if we would go to a bird farm, I'd let her out of the truck, and before we could even get our shotguns loaded, she'd be out like busting birds and running around, and she would just clear the field. And she was a great dog. I mean, she's probably still my favorite dog ever because she was my first dog that I ever had.
Mhm.
She just had a great personality. But when she was gone, it took me a while to recover and want another dog. And then when I decided to buy one, I got one from a pretty local breeder, and they are the one that run the local NABBA chapter, and they were pushing it not super hard, but they, I mentioned what I was looking for out of a dog, and they said you should really think about joining NABBA. It's funny because we have the same exact thought process behind it. It's like, if I would run into a problem like this year, my first year training, next year somebody else might have that same problem, and I can be like, oh, hey, you know what? I know how to fix that. You know what I mean? So it's like,
I do.
And that's something that's just, instead of going out and trying it yourself in a public place, which is, you can do it. And I'm not saying you shouldn't, but you don't have that like, now you're going to be Googling and YouTubing and trying to find it. Whereas if you're at a part of a club, any club, you have 25, 30 people there that are like, oh, we should try this, or we should try that, or whatever,
Right.
So it's great. And the camaraderie is crazy. Like, some of my best friends came from, meeting them 5 years ago when I bought the dog. So
Sure.
that camaraderie is there too.
Absolutely. I mean, when you have a group of guys together and girls, I mean, there was plenty of girls in the NABBA chapter by me. When you have that group of people together that all share that same common focus, I mean, you're going to make friends. You're going to meet people. I mean, and it can lead to some really great things like I went on hunting trips I never would have went on if I hadn't met some people that I met through those things.
Yeah. And that's an absolutely great point. The people that I met and the girls that I've met and everything like that, the kids that I've met, my wife actually ran my drift through her NA test because she wanted to. She was so interested in it. Now that we've had another younger kid, that she's kind of removed herself, and I've continued with her training because, I didn't want to slow down and didn't want to lack or anything like that. But
right.
There's so many people there that are doing it. It's crazy that, like, it's crazy to imagine my life without it at this point. And dogs and all that stuff. And I think that, I don't know, maybe you disagree with me, but the amount of people that really are into upland hunting and dogs, like the way that we are, like, I guess the way that I am, there's not a lot of us. It's not like, I mean, whitetail guys are everywhere. I mean, you go everywhere. It's everybody's a whitetail guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, to find guys like us that are crazy about bird dogs and crazy about grouse and woodcock, they're not around. I was talking to a kid that works for me today, and I mentioned that I was going to be on a podcast, and he's like, guys, I think that's pretty cool that you're going to be on it, because they're all like, most people that are into grouse hunting, they're all like old guys. I'm like, old guys? And I said, well, like, so how old are we talking here? And he's like, I'm like 40. I'm like, so in 2 years I'm old. Like, no, but he's like, usually people talk about guys that are up north grouse hunting and going up north and doing that. They're all like 50 plus or 60 years old. And I'm like, really, he's not that wrong. Like, the majority of the people that are, I mean, I think, with Project Upland and all those guys,
Agreed.
It's kind of a downswing on it, but for the most part, it seems like it's a little bit of an older thing, and there's not a lot of people doing it. So it's cool to get around people that do it, and they do have the passion to do it, because it's not like you just walk down the street and you're like, are you a grouse hunter?
Right.
It's not like whitetail hunting where everybody does it.
Right.
Good way to meet people.
And then like grouse is pretty popular. Like, you have a lot of people that have hunted grouse for years, but then you get into this like woodcock hunting, which I fell in love with right after, like, during grouse hunting, because in Wisconsin here, we don't have pheasants. I mean, we have put and take pheasants, which isn't really my bag. But once I stumbled into woodcock in a flight up north, and I realized they're a migratory bird and I can chase them around me locally during the migration, that changed everything, because now I can chase a wild bird through the woods. And it's so similar to grouse hunting. And that's what I truly love to do. Now I don't have to drive 4 hours. When the migration's in, oh, you'll catch me in the grouse woods before anywhere else. Or not the grouse, I mean the woodcock woods before anywhere else.
I look forward. Last year, I don't think I killed a single pheasant. I think I went on a couple of upland hunts, like at game farms after the season was closed. But
sure.
If I'm not chasing woodcock, I'm chasing grouse. And if I'm chasing woodcock and not grouse, it's probably because I don't feel like driving 3 hours, or we got something going on, and I can do it around here. You know what
Right.
I mean? I think you hit the nail right on the head. We don't have a resident pheasant population anymore. So and to me, to kill birds that 2 hours ago had blinders on. I mean, I've backed into parking lots where they drop pheasants and they're like sitting in the parking lot.
Yep.
Like I get out of the door, and that's not why I hunt. That's not why I don't need to go shoot 2 birds and then go home in 5 minutes. I want to watch the dogs. I want to run the dogs. I want to be out in nature and enjoy myself. So to get out and I mean, at least there's some meat there, right? But
Right.
like woodcock, they're such an awesome little bird and they're completely wild. They're not. It's not a pen raised bird. It's not. They're completely wild, and like you said, if you hit the flight just right, if all of a sudden they're there, if you're there when they're there, it's going to be a crazy time, and you're going to have more fun than you could have with planted birds. I promise you that.
Oh, I agree 100%. I wound up taking my wife once grouse up, or went pheasant hunting for her first time, and then season progressed and the flight came in and I took her out for a woodcock hunt in one of my favorite spots, one of these little spots which I've never seen another woodcock hunter in, which is pretty phenomenal actually. And it follows this river channel and like it's got like just the perfect amount of like everything, right? And we went in there and my lab put up, I think it was 34 birds in an hour.
Wow.
And and some of them were multiple flushes because woodcock will land like 30 yards away sometimes because I don't know why, they're just not smart, but they're smart in other ways because they'll hold so tight that they don't even want to move.
Yep.
But you're probably right, they probably are just tired. But we put up 34 birds and it's like an hour and a half, and I walked away. That's the last time I got my limit, but she got to experience that. And she's like, and she was just blown away. And and afterwards, I'm like, I've been doing this for a long time now, and I have never experienced anything like that. Like that. I mean, I've had great hunts where, like the buddy who I always do grouse camp with, who's been on the show, Steve. Him and I we have had some great woodcock hunts where we've both taken limits and we've put up dozens of birds, but nothing in as small of an area as what we had. It was just out of this, like a flight had to have just landed the night before. It was incredible.
We had I had never 34 birds in an hour and a half, but I've had 2-man limit in under an hour, and it was downright crazy. It was like one of my good friends, who also is my cousin, he now has a short hair, and this hunt was the reason for it. We were up north and we were moving grouse, but we just weren't connecting. So it was like, it's normal grouse.
It's normal grouse hunting.
Right. But when you're taking somebody out with you, it's kind of like, I don't ever have a problem taking out somebody grouse hunting that understands that grouse hunts all the time. But
right.
Like to take out kind of a new guy, somebody that's just getting into it, it's kind of frustrating. You know what I mean? Like to understand that they're the king of the woods for a reason. You have to experience it and really learn what it's like. I mean, the pheasant goes up, it's a big production, and then they're not super fast moving, and then you shoot them, and then they, it's in the wide open. You go for something, and everything's so fast.
It's extremely fast. I mean, and it's so many, and that's what's hard with new hunters too.
Yeah.
Like so many things play into that because it's 100% instinctive shooting. You can't mount your gun. You can't get your perfect swing. It's like if your gun mount isn't right, you're going to struggle over and over and over again. And not only from a fitted shotgun, but even to just the repetition of mounting your gun. I mean, it's all instinctive. And they fly up, they fly down, they fly left, they fly right. There's no path. Like they weave between trees.
Sometimes you're just shooting at, you see them and you shoot, and it's like, I might have hit him, and then the dog brings the bird back. It's like I'm following it, and I went behind a pine tree as I was pulling the trigger, and it just so happened to connect with it. But we were on this hunt to switch over to woodcock because I know we could get on some woodcock, right? And like you said, it must have just been the perfect time. So you working in the spot, starting to get a little squishy underneath the feet, starting to get close to some running water, so you just start to get a little bit more productive. And one dog's on point. I walk in there, flush the bird, doesn't shoot. He turns around, notices that my other dog's on point, and was on point the whole time. He turns around, shoots that bird. I go retrieve the dog, the bird from the first dog. He turns around, she's on point again. And it was just like in an hour, it was like boom, 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 boom. We get back to the cabin, and he's like, "Is it always like that?" I'm like, I wish I could say yeah. I mean, it is. I mean, it can be, but it's like those are the days that you hunt for. You hunt for those happy days, all year long to get those 2 ski days where the flight is there, and it's like crazy. You wish the limit was like 12 because you can just chase and chase and chase. But it's not like anything that people don't understand, and it's good to talk to people who do understand, because people are like, why would you? It kind of tastes like crap anyway. It's like, well, more for me then, I guess. Right. I like them. I think they're delicious, and and then you get my dogs don't like to handle them. Well, my dogs love to handle them. So,
I've never experienced that in the field. Of all the dogs I've been around, I've never had one that has refused to pick up a woodcock. Like, I don't know if it's partly myth now, or if it's still like legitimate, like some dogs just won't handle a woodcock for some reason.
I don't know that I've ever seen a dog not handle a woodcock. I think if you have a dog that is force-fetched or trained retriever, whatever you want to call it, I think the difference is, I think those small upland birds, like a grouse and a woodcock, I think they lose their feathers so easily. And when they pick up those birds, feathers come off in their mouth, and I think that's very off-putting for them. So that's why I don't know that they have a foul taste, but they did. But I think, if you ever notice, even they spit out a grouse or a woodcock, there's feathers everywhere. They spit out a pheasant, they don't have feathers hanging out of their mouth like they do with the grouse or woodcock. I mean, crap, you could shoot a grouse and it could bounce off of like 3 branches on the way down to the ground off a pine tree, and it could basically be bald at the bottom. So
right. Right. I mean,
what's most off-putting to them is that feathers in their mouth. I don't think it's just a crap. I think it's a myth.
That's why I always get impressed when I see these, like some people, like the pictures where people still have these beautiful tail fans on their grouse and whatnot. Because I'm pretty sure almost every time I get a bird back to my hand, and my dog's pretty soft mouth. My lab wasn't. My lab was pretty hard mouth for a bird on the ground. In the water, he was fine. He'd always struggle trying to figure out how to pick up a bird. Like, he would always couldn't, it was like soft. So he couldn't he just couldn't wrap his mind around it. But I don't think I've ever had a dog bring a grouse back to my hand that actually still had all of his tail feathers.
We were up with, I was up hunting with a buddy up north one time, and he shot a bird that, as it flushed, it was perfect flush, came out, and I could tell it was like a apricot color. And he shot it and it fell. And he had been talking about wanting to mount a specific colored bird, something reddish, whatever, for a long time. And it was, my dog pointed it, but this bird flushed right in front of him. He made a beautiful shot. And as it fell, I noticed no feathers fell off. So I warned my dog and I said, if you were thinking about mounting a pheasant or mounting a grouse, this is the one. I said, I can tell you that this is the color, probably the color that you're looking for. And it didn't look like it lost any feathers. If the dog touch it, you're not going to be able to get it mounted. And lost over, and it was in perfect condition. He's about to stuff in it. I said, no, we're going to walk that all the way back to the truck. We're going to slide it to do a Ziploc bag, and then we'll come back. Because otherwise, I don't know why. I don't know why I've never done any research on it. Maybe somebody knows. Maybe somebody can comment or whatever. But I don't know why they lose their feathers so easily. But I think that's why their dogs don't like to carry them in their mouth. No.
And it's real easy to tell when you have a couple like grouse or pheasant in your vest throughout the season, or woodcock in your vest, but then you put like some pheasant in there. I mean, like the amount of feathers just in your vest is night and day difference between a pheasant and like those grouse and woodcock. I mean, your vest just kind of like you take the birds out and like there's feathers coming out with them.
Yep, absolutely, totally agree. Sometimes you pull so many feathers that you're like, this bird is just going to be like the breast, and you pull it out and you're like, no, there's still some feathers.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I've never actually even stopped to think about that until right now, but you're 100% right. I mean, them grouse and wood, they don't hold their feathers once they hit the ground.
It's just the stupid stuff you talk about when you're bombing around in the woods with a bunch of buddies, and like, geez, did you see that bird home? They must have lost all its feathers when it hit the tree. And then the conversation just spirals out of control, and next thing you know, you've got the world's problems figured out, especially with feathers and stuff like that.
So. That's the great thing about hunting with friends, right? I mean, the conversations lead anywhere, like just randomness sometimes, just especially if the hunt's slow. But that's what I like so much about upland hunting compared to deer hunting is you're constantly moving, you're constantly traveling, your dogs are working, and you can sit there and talk to someone else, and you don't have to be all whisper quiet and hiding or anything like that.
Well, I think that's my favorite part. I'm a white devil, and I try to put the meat in the freezer every single year, but as far as like, I don't want to sit there for 5 hours and not talk.
Right.
You know, I don't. And it's really hard for me. I invest a lot of time into my dog, and it's really hard for me to go and do anything that doesn't involve them, because I know that they'd rather be doing whatever I'm doing, and I would rather them be doing what I'm doing. So it's really hard for me to make that transition to say, okay, I need to go and deer hunt, because
Right.
I'd rather be. I wish there was more meat on grill, because then I wouldn't even need deer, and I could just do what I'd rather be doing. But I really like to kill a couple of deer so I can eat grill deer. So, but it's like, and I really have a hard time with that. That's why I spend a lot of time in the woods chasing birds, because that's where my heart lies. And like you said, there's just something about, that nice morning, 9 o'clock in the morning, and I don't have to get out of bed at 4:30.
Right.
I can get up. The birds are probably hitting the ground about 7:30. Let them dry off a little bit. Let the woods dry off, and then I can get out with my buddies at 9 o'clock. I mean, you can get up and have a cup of coffee and keep the breeze a little bit, and then let's go chase some birds for a couple hours, and then we'll meet for lunch, and then we'll go do it again in the afternoon, and then we'll sit around and keep the breeze, go to bed, and do it tomorrow all over again. Don't have to worry about getting up and being sleepy, and I don't know. It's just there's no. But everybody's got their thing, right? So it's hard.
Right. Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head too. It's the fact, like, we put so much time into our dogs, and I feel guilty when I go out deer hunting, because I know I could be taking them out bird hunting instead. Like the last year I actually chased archery really hard was the year my lab hurt his paw. I think it happened up in grouse week, and then we hunted pheasants after that. We did an earlier grouse thing, and he had some sort of thorn come through the top of his paw and split it wide open. And he got like 7 stitches, I think it was. And like he was laid up for a handful of weeks because of that. And I think that was the last time I remember actually hunting archery season hard. Otherwise, I'll go out for gun deer. Hopefully put a deer in the freezer for the wife and myself, because one deer is about all we really need. I mean, one deer lasts us for a year normally. And otherwise, I'm going to be out either having the dog with me for ducks, and ducks don't come until later in the year, because ducks come once we get enough snow where it gets really hard, like with boots and all that, and the dog. And at that point, I'll just probably hunt ducks more local. But in October, yeah, we're in the woods. We're driving up north for day trips. We're down here for woodcock. I mean, we're spending every minute we can in the woods looking for grouse and woodcock, because that's what she loves to do as well.
Yeah. And it's a family sport, right? So
right.
I don't have to, and try to get your kids to do everything with you, to open their minds to all the things that you do, and allow them to have every opportunity. But it's hard to make a young kid sit still and be quiet and shut up. It's way less hard to put them in an orange vest and be like, you can do whatever you want as long as you're out of the way when the dog comes. You know what I mean? It's
right.
It's a family sport. Dogs are a family sport. Training is a family sport. And it's deer recovery is a family sport. Deer butchering is a family sport.
Right.
But like the act of deer hunting, we've tried. The state of Wisconsin tried so many things with like youth seasons and all that other stuff. We didn't have that one. We just said, sit in the stand, shut up. Well, tell me get you when you're going in. And I don't think kids are going to do that anymore. Like, I know my daughters, my oldest daughter, no way. She'd be like in like 15 minutes. She'd be like, can I get out of here? You know what I mean? So it's a good opportunity to get them in the outdoors and get them to experience, a different type of hunting.
And you can start them, and I don't have kids, but from my friends that do, you can start them younger. Because like you said, they can walk around. I mean, to them, they're exploring the woods, right? I mean, like you said, you don't have to sit there and be quiet for 4 hours for a morning sit. I mean, when they can run around. I mean, worst case scenario is what? They bump a bird. Big deal. I mean, really big deal. Who cares?
Yeah. And, like you could pack a little lunch along with you, do a little day lunch thing and sit in the woods. And we've done that lots of times. We go up and look in the cabin and just jump in the truck at 9, a bunch of snacks and some stuff in my back and my back pouch, and walk around. And then when the kids get hungry, let's just sit down and have something to eat. Let the dogs have some water. Dogs can run around. The dogs can run around and do whatever they want to. And let's pick it back up again. And when the kids get sick of it, we'll go back to the cabin. You know, we don't have to push it super hard. We got a couple days to do it, and I'll be back up here next weekend anyway. So
Right, right, and the nice and like the other advantage too. Where the heck was like with the deer hunting? It's hard, right? I mean, you got to get them up early. I mean, just like you were saying, like they can sleep. You don't have to wake them up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and because I've seen that before with my friends' kids, and they get all cranky because they're not used to getting up at that time. Heck, there's plenty of mornings I get all cranky because I don't want to get up that early, right?
yeah,
And
like the second morning, like Saturday's fine, but then Sunday you're like, I really wish I would have slept like yesterday so I could sleep together.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and the weather's nice there generally. I mean, you don't have to hunt November. You can hunt October when it's beautiful out generally. You know what I mean? Maybe some rain, but for the most part, it's gorgeous outside in October. Easier for the kids, easier on me, easier on the dog. It's just, you know, I almost don't want to talk about it too highly because there's such an epidemic of, and I think we're blessed with meat eater, all these avenues that are getting people into hunting. That's what we want. We want hunter retention. We want new people into the sport. But you know, there's a really interesting article that Matt Ranella, Steve's brother, wrote about. He doesn't like it because now all of his hunting spots are packed full of people.
Sure.
So like you mentioned it before, one thing I don't have to worry about is a lot of people being in the woodcock spot because we're talking about how you've never seen a guy in the woodcock spot. I don't know that I've ever seen a guy in the woodcock spot.
Right.
Nobody hunts woodcock. Barely anybody hunts grouse, and if they do hunt grouse, they're not getting more than 5 feet off. They're hunting down the road with their truck, and if they see it, they're going to turn on there and try to shoot it, which they probably won't. And if they do shoot it, they shot it right off the road. The amount of guys getting in and getting after it is so few and far between. It's like I don't even know if I could say that hunting. And these guys are talking about, you know, you go to the tavern after the day hunting just to get a sandwich or something like that. And these guys will ski with a rough grouse hat and rough grouse society. And say, hey, you're a grouse hunter. Yep. How many birds you shoot this year? And I feel like I think last year, and last year was a tough year. I didn't hunt as much as I did because I had my bear tag last year. So like last time hunting grouse, so my numbers were down last year, but I think I ended at 47 grouse, 66 woodcock, and not by myself, shot over my. But
sure.
Talk to these guys and they're like, oh, gee, you must be in a really good spot. And I was like, I just always kind of think that like these people base the grouse numbers off of what they're seeing from the truck. And some of those years that people had said that they're the worst years that they've ever hunted, I was seeing grouse all over the place. Like, you know, don't be afraid to go and, you know, shake it up and try a new spot and all this other stuff. This grouse should be found. You know, it's not. So I guess I digress. My point is, I like people into hunting. If you don't really seem to have to worry about people getting into grouse food, for whatever the reason, I don't know if it's too hard, you don't have the dog, whatever. But
right.
That's the beauty of it.
I would agree with that. I mean, deer hunting, super popular. Waterfowl hunting, extremely popular because all the people that got frustrated with what happened with the deer in Wisconsin went to waterfowl. But you didn't see a huge explosion with the grouse and the woodcock. I will say last year, though, with COVID, I did notice a strong increase or a lot of out-of-state presence in the North Woods of Wisconsin, though. Because when I went up for my grouse camp, which was the week before Halloween, and the weather was crap, because that's when it got super cold and we got all that snow day after day after day. I talked to guys from Maine, Carolinas, Vermont, New York, Texas, Arizona. Like I saw all these out-of-state hunters. I'm like, what is going on? And 3/4 of the ones I talked to normally went to Canada for grouse.
What do you associate that to?
I think from the ones I talked to, it's because the Canadian border was closed and they normally went to Canada for a grouse trip.
So why do you think? So why don't you think they picked like northern Michigan? You know, like
if I had to guess why they chose Wisconsin, I think it has a lot to do with the Rough Grouse Society hunt here every year now. I think that's opened up the North Woods, especially being held in Eagle River. And I have nothing against the hunt. I have nothing against Rough Grouse Society, but I think that has put northern Wisconsin on the map more than, like, let's say the UP or Minnesota.
Yeah, and I do think that RGS and AWS does a lot of stuff in northern Wisconsin, which is great. I think think they need to continue to do that, and I hope they continue to do that. I'll continue to put as much money as I possibly can towards that because we have such good, growth. And I'm okay with people. Because I mean, realistically, what's the kill percentage? The woodcock's probably a little more, right? But I know that. I mean, how many flushes per kill? You know what I mean? So it's
right.
It's a very hard bird to consider yourself a marksman on, because you could be a great shot, and it doesn't necessarily mean you kill it. So you chase them all you want, doesn't mean you kill them. That's the other thing.
I would agree 100%, and I'm okay with it. And at the end of the day, I am okay with it because from an economy standpoint, those places up north need it. The hotels need it. The bars need it. The restaurants need it, especially last year when they were all hit so hard. I'm okay with it. And like you said, compared to every other sport, like not like for deer or all these other, the numbers still aren't there, even with all these other state hunters coming.
No, not even close. It's ridiculous how few people do it, and I'm mind blown by it because it's such an amazing sport. And I think it's like, they're not really a crap load of musky fishermen because, like people want meat. They want to take something home. If they're going to go hunting, it's not about how many flushes you get, it's how many you get home. And
right.
With grouse hunting, it's about extreme dog work, and it's about, enjoying the outdoors enough to get after it, enough to get lucky enough to kill one. So it's like, I don't know. And maybe I just never really put my finger on why people wouldn't want to, why they wouldn't want to taste it, because it's so much fun. It's so incredible.
I think it's funny you compared it to muskie, because Steve and I, we do it as well too, because there's been plenty of there's a lot of times we'll count flushes, not kills. And it's the same with muskie. Like when we both had the muskie bug, which I don't anymore. I kind of got tired of chasing those darn toothy fish, but we'd count fouls. I mean, you catch a fish, it's amazing. You shoot a grouse, it's amazing. But there's days where I just can't connect on muskie or on grouse. I mean, there's days where I miss every single one I put up, and we're counting flushes or we're counting fouls for. It's funny because they like have so many correlations there. And I think, and again, like you said, I mean, the people that chase muskie, it's a small percentage of fishermen, just like the people that chase grouse and woodcock is a small percentage of hunters.
I think there's guys that do it, but I mean, I think it's like I've chased muskies in my day as well. One of my best friends is a huge muskie hunter, and I think since you're in it, it seems like there's more people that do it. But I mean, if you talk to the normal fisherman, just like if you talk to the normal hunter, the amount of people that upland hunt, very few and far between, especially in Wisconsin. And then if you subtract pheasants from that, just say grouse, I think there's a larger number of people that hunt grouse than woodcock. Now, if you say you're a woodcock hunter, people are like, mind blowing when people are like, what is a woodcock? You mean a snipe?
Yeah.
They don't even exist. It's like, no, they do exist. It's a real thing. It's like, there's so few of us that I'm okay with it. But it's, like I said, it's mind blowing. I don't understand how you couldn't enjoy the crap out of it. It's so much fun.
And being so small, like the group of us, we don't get much of a say in our regulations, because I would love to see the woodcock season change slightly, like either the southern zone open later or there be a split like ducks in the southern zone. Because if you chase them hard enough, I mean, it's always like the last week of the season down south and like the 2 weeks following always seem to be the best. And I'm always like, man, they would just close a couple of weeks. And I know that it's set by federal structure, just like migratory birds, but we have a lot of say in it. But there's not a big voice for the woodcock hunters in Wisconsin to be like, hey, we want a southern zone or we want a split. I mean, I would love to personally see that. And I've done absolutely nothing to champion that change or anything along those lines. But I think it'd be hard to get enough people together to even get I'm not even sure the DNR would even recognize there's enough of us to warrant a change.
I think that's why you would have to depend on like American Woodcraft Society or Rough Grouse Society, something like that. And that's a very interesting thing. I've never really thought about it. The thing about the woodcock season is, like, when it's gone, it's gone. How often after that fight is gone, you don't put any. If there's snow on the ground, you don't put any up. Like, you know what I mean? It's like they're gone. So it's like I have had it up here where it seems like the season is closed before the birds are gone. But up north, I've never had. Seems like
right. That's why like a split, like a southern northern zone or like a split down south. Because I agree, up north, you get that first snow, you'll get some birds that push through. but they're flying past now. I mean, you'll still stumble into some, but like there's definitely them seasons down here where it's closed and we are like, I'll go back out with the camera because there's just the flights are still coming in.
Well, for sure. But I mean, to play the devil's advocate, how often, and I know it's happening, how often has the flight been through before the season's even done? Because you get those really wet, rainy winter falls where it seems like the flight is gone and you've got 2 weeks of season left and you couldn't buy a woodcock.
That's true.
Like, so it's like, I get it. I understand it. It'd be nice. And the beauty of, if you did that, if you extended that season or had a split season, you're almost not really going to hurt anything because when the flight's gone, it's gone.
Right.
And there's like 8 of us in the state of Wisconsin that actually do this. So, I mean, you figure it out. If you extend it for another 2 weeks, 3 birds a day times 24 birds a day. If we were to kill them every single day, you're talking about like 100, 125 birds. It's not that big a deal. So,
right.
But that's the beauty of these things like Rough Trail Society, American Woodcock Society. That's your avenue to get through to all this stuff because you're right. There's not a lot of us. There's not a lot of us that can get through in the state, especially woodcock. I mean, I would love to know the actual number of woodcock hunters. Not grouse hunters. I think the number's a little higher. But like woodcock guys that go out on a Saturday to do like you'll drive right past the spot where they dump the pheasants, right? But you'll drive right by, wave all those guys, and you're gonna go chase. That's how many of us are? There's not many.
I agree.
So I would love to know that number. So it'd be cool if people spoke up and said I love chasing woodcock because I think it's a pretty low number.
And it's my favorite. It just I enjoy it more than grouse because they hold so tight, and you get like I love the photography of it, like because you can actually like if you're paying attention, if you're on your like you can get a picture with the bird right in front of the dog. You can't do that with grouse. You can't get that close to a grouse. The dog can't get that close to a grouse. But they hold so tight and they're a little bit easier to hit, at least because I think most times they fly straight up before they fly out. At least that's how I feel like most woodcock go up, then out, and you kind of get that perfect spot where they hinge, if you want to call it that. Whereas grouse, man, if they're in the mood, they'll fly 10 feet off the ground, and somehow they make sure to keep your dog right in front of them the whole time.
Yeah, or they could fly right down a lane and like be behind the one tree that's there the whole entire time. It's like they got 2 eyes or 4 eyes, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. They know right where to be. And I always said woodcock almost kind of fly like a moth. They go straight up, and then when they're going through, they seem like they're fast because their wings are fluttering all over the place, but they're not really moving all that fast. They just seem like it.
I would agree with that. Whereas grouse are going somehow 45 miles an hour in a second and a half, and like they're dodging in between, they're dodging under elders and through pine trees somehow. And I'm like, where'd it go?
Yeah, I've got video footage of people shooting at grouse and like tree branches like hinging, and you never know what's going to happen because they could be going perfectly straight and they're going to turn hard right or duck and weave, and they're a crazy hard bird to hit. They can be downright discouraging most of them.
I agree, and that's why I would agree with what you said going back is that's not the bird I'm going to introduce new hunters to.
No.
I mean, like first time hunters, like what I like for me personally, when I take first time hunters out, I normally go pay for pheasants and I take them to a field and I consider it a dog training day. So they're going to hold tight most of the time. I mean, most of the time pen raised birds hold tight, and then I can set them up for success. And then I just consider it a dog training day. Yeah.
And that's, you do that or you utilize the pheasant trucks, utilize something like that because if you want to show dog work, it's hard to show dog work in the woods where half the time I don't know what my dogs are doing. I don't even know where they are. I mean, I know where they are, but I can't see them because of the woods. You get out in the field or something like that, you can show somebody what they can see the dogs work, which is the beauty of it to me. I mean, I couldn't watch my dogs work. It's not about the meat. It's not about the wing shooting for me. It's not about the cool over-under guns and the really awesome Irish setter boots and all that other crap. To me, it's about the dog work, 100%. That's it. And that's what I want to show people is how much work I put into my dogs, how stellar my dogs are. And to me, I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't have like top of the line bird dogs. Compared, people probably watch them. Other people would watch them and think they're sloppy, but to me, they're great. Right. And that's what I want. That's what I want to show people.
I agree, and And that's why I choose to upland hunt. That's why you even said you choose to upland hunt. It's to be with the dogs. It's to watch the dogs. And I've said this before. It's, to me, hunting's an experience. It's not about shooting an animal. That adds to the experience and creates a whole different type of emotional set. But I mean, it's about the overall experience. It's about being with friends, watching your dogs work, watching the sunrise through a meadow. I mean, all of it. It's all those experiences. That's why I'm out there. It's not just to shoot a bird. It's not just for one thing. It's to watch my dog work. It's to see, like, to get that opportunity at that, when she does have that perfect point and she's steady to the shot and she gets the retrieve, which doesn't happen all that often because, like I said, we missed a lot of them pivotal years for training. So I have a woodcock I'm mounting just for that, because it was that perfect scenario. Everything was great. And it's those moments, and those are the ones that I go for every single time. It's the whole experience. It's watching her work a scent trail and, like, putting the pieces together in her head, trying to figure out, this bird's running. Where's it running to? How do I get in front of it? Or, like, her, like, has she's learned how to put, like, how much pressure can I put on a grouse? And every year that seems to slightly change, because some years they're super spooky. Other years they can kind of crowd them. And it's watching her try to figure that out every time and learn as she goes, because every hunt she learns as well.
Yep. And that's like reading a dog, watching a dog. Those are the only things that all the other stuff is just hopping on the cake. The birds in the vest, the meat in the freezer, the sunsets, the sunrises, all that other stuff. To me, watching the dogs work is where it's at for me. And there's so many things that that woodcock that you're mounting, that's just a constant reminder of that perfect memory that you'll always have, and it's going to always be there at the top of your list. You get those shot. You moved 34 woodcock in an hour and a half. It's just that's one time that you're working towards every single time, to get to that perfect hunt. So
that's burned into my memory forever. I'll never forget that day. And it was the last really solid hunt my lab had, because he was 9 at the time.
Yeah.
9 or 10. He was old. I mean, that was like an hour and a half that was pretty much all he could do, especially chasing that many birds. I mean, he was done. Like, his hips hurt. Like, I had to rest him, I think, for 3 or 4 days. My hips hurt too. But I mean, just like my wife, like, just blown away. Like, everything about that, even the dog was like, you could just tell he had so much drive that day, because he was just so amped up. Like, it didn't matter that his hips hurt. It didn't matter that he was old. It didn't matter that his face was gray and he was tired. There were so many birds in front of him. And, like, that's the memory I hold on to for him. It's like all those birds and my wife being able to experience that. And that's probably going to be the greatest woodcock day I ever have, because I highly doubt I'll ever beat it.
Gives you something to chase, though.
It does.
Gives you something to look forward to. It's just it's just amazing to me that we're almost allowed to do this, because it's so much fun. It's almost like it should be illegal. You get up there in the North Woods, where I get a solid feeling from you that that's where you'd rather be as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's where I'm biding my time down here until I can be up there full time, because that's where I want to be. I'm sure winters are sucky, but as far as like falls go, there's nothing that beats that smell and that crispness and all that other stuff. But it's like you only get a few of those perfect days a year, and it's hard to imagine missing them. And like you said, you're constantly chasing that one day that you had that was perfect, and you'll never have that again. You're never going to have that exact day. It's always going to be another. It's going to be perfect, but it's going to be different kind of perfect. So
right. The dog's going to be different. The terrain might be different. Even if you're hunting the same area, I mean, water levels change, things age. I mean, the forests age. I mean, you're going to have, as grouse hunters, we can't keep going back to those same old areas as they start to age out. I mean, we have to transition to different woods as the birds transition, and everything kind of continues to move forward. And like you said, you're always chasing that hunt, but as you're chasing that hunt, you start chasing it in different areas, and you make different memories with different dogs and everything. And it's a constant progression of that experience, I guess.
Yeah, and I spend about half my time hunting tried and true spots when I'm up north. I spend the other half trying new spots. Because if you just hunted tried and true spots, like you said, I think we're going to end up, over the years, they're going to burn out. These birds are going to move out of there. And I think, and birds move throughout the season. So a spot that's good in mid-September is not going to produce in mid-October. A spot that's going to produce in mid-October is not going to produce in mid-November or December or January. It's ever changing. And that's why I'm constantly trying new spots. And Onyx has changed the game for me with that.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm still a geek with, I wish I would have grabbed one, but I'm still a geek with like paper forestry maps. You can up north, you can get the forestry maps with the different year classes that they did the cutting. And then I've got them laminated because, yeah, they're like 5 years old, but like it doesn't matter because if I kill birds in this year class, I just go to that same year class.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's older, but it's the same. So, but if you're constantly hunting the same stuff all the time, like it's like fishing the exact same fishing. Like, great. You're not expanding. You're not learning anything. You're not making new areas. You're not making, you're gonna have new tried and true spots if you keep moving. The other little secret that I have is if I do kill a grouse in a spot, the very first grouse that I kill, the very first thing I do is I always carry Ziploc bags on. And the first thing I do is I rip open its crop. And then I check out what they're eating because, you might have just got lucky. If you kill one in this, 10-year cutting, and it just so happened to be a bird that was on the edge and it's moving out of there, you could work that all day long because you killed one there. And that might be the only bird that's there. But if you rip open its crop, you're going to be able to tell what it was eating. So, if it's full of high bush cranberry and there's no high bush cranberry to be found where you're hunting, you're not going to kill anymore, right?
Right.
So you just, the birds are moving with the food. You need to move with the birds. So you can be a step ahead of yourself and then find out where the birds are eating. Maybe they're full of blueberries or acorns or whatever they're eating.
Right.
That's what you need to know. So it's like just one little nugget of, that's what I always like to do. And that's why I'm constantly trying new spots because, like I said, they're going to burn out. So I have spots that we used to hunt with my dad that I bet you wouldn't even see again. That was 20 years ago. And now some of those spots that we would never have hunted then have been cut, and now we're hunting those spots. So,
right. I mean, the forest changes with how they cut it. And like you said, you might flush a bird and hunt an entire area, but if you don't actually look to see what that bird was feeding on, why that bird was there, it could have been bumped by another hunter. It could have been bumped by a predator. It could have just been moving through for some reason, like changing locations based on food or weather, like you said, because they change habitat over the year. I mean, if you're not actually thinking about why that bird was there, you're going to wind up wasting a lot of time.
Well, and one time that sticks out to me is one time we worked a spot. We were working at Edge, and we moved. It had to be like 3-4 birds that were all cooped up, and it was like right away. We hunted that same cover for what we thought. We didn't kill any of those birds. We hunted that the cover that they thought they're in for a couple more hours. We were moving in the birds. It turns out they were actually in the neighboring. Like we were on an edge, so they were actually in that little bit older thicket cover that we didn't think they were in. We made a big loop when we came back and we started to move birds. And it was like, oh, well, I mean, if we would have just thought about that and tried something new, but we were so hung up on hunting this young cutting that we didn't think that they'd be in this little bit older cutting that was adjacent to it. So you're always trying to better yourself, but keep your eyes open and think outside the box. And that's kind of my point before with these guys that think that there's no grouse now. They're around. They're just not stupid. Like they're not going to hang out next to the road all the time. Like if you've seen by the road, they're great, but there's just as many that aren't by that road. All grouse don't just sit next to the gravel road. If you can go into the woods a couple hundred yards or make a big loop or go a mile, that's my favorite thing to do is just make a huge loop. Just get in there and time myself out on it. So just stick a loop there. That's gonna be 6 miles. It'll take me about 3.5 hours. That'll be good for the dog. Get in there, make a huge loop, come back out. I explored some new stuff. Didn't see anybody else. Maybe I got some good spots, and maybe I know I don't want to hunt. So
I agree. I mean, it's very rare we're walking trail. I mean, most of the time we're busting brush. I mean, that's what we're doing. I mean, we'll walk trail to get somewhere, sure. But I mean, we're off trail. Like the only time we end up winding on a trail is if it's like day 3 of grouse camp and the dogs are tired and it's just like, all right, we'll take it easy. And and then they get birdie, and then they're off trail, and now it's like, all right, here we go. But
yeah,
but I mean,
so you got your buddies in grouse camp. How many guys you got along?
just me and one other guy.
So one dog, just your dog, or does he have a dog as well?
He has a dog too. He's got a setter. Yep, he's got a setter. She's getting older now. I think she's 12 because she was a year younger than Bandit, and she was born deaf.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So what kind of hurdles did he have to overcome to train that dog?
A lot. It's a great dog. It's a great dog. It will not retrieve. He never really force fetched, but it's never been able to associate like a gunshot with a falling bird. So it has a very hard time even like recognizing when a bird is shot.
Yeah, it would have to be like in a field and would have been watching it probably, right?
Right, exactly. So, but he's able to get the dog. Most of the time, the dog will actually point a dead bird. So he'll just get the dog to hunt the area where the bird fell, and then she'll repoint it dead, which works for him. That's vibrate on a collar is here. I mean, still sometimes like she hunts close. Very visual hunter as well. Like she'll like if Steve's like hitting the vibrate for her to cut. Like a lot of times she'll run to me because she runs to the first hunter in orange, and then she's like, "Oh wait, that's not you." But I mean, there's definitely some challenges, but she's a phenomenal dog. Like that's part of the reason why I went to a pointer, because it was just amazing to watch her work.
Now, do you think so? Your dog was 6 or is 6?
My dog is 9.
9. Okay, so getting up there in years, are you thinking about getting another one?
I am going to get another one. I will probably stay with a Griff. I think that's my plan right now. Mm-hmm. The coat's just a lot. The burrs are a lot. They really are.
It's give or take, though. Really, I mean, the one thing I like about the Griff is they seem to be a lot more, mild mannered. They're not such a harsh dog, and that comes with its problems. I mean, I've had issues training. They're not issues, but like training my short hair compared to training my Griff, two different. It's night and day, apples to oranges. And I just can't use the tactics with the Griff that I can with there. But if you already have a Griff, that's. I always said I would do this again. I would do a short hair Griff combo because my short hair is a big running dog. It applies a lot of pressure on birds.
Sure.
My Griff is a closer working dog, so it's like when I do hunt them together, it's like they're kind of working the areas that the other one wouldn't.
Yep.
It's like we're moving a lot of birds because of that. It's a very good combo. I really enjoy that. I enjoy hunting them alone as well because you give them that one-on-one time. And I like watching the way that they each work individually because they have a different style. But it's just interesting to talk to guys that have a breed and they're that breed guy. Like I'm a Griff guy, I'm a short hair guy, and it's like, well, why? And they kind of always have like most of the stupid reasons why they're a Griff guy, why they're a short hair guy, or whatever. I mean,
sure.
They all have their beautiful traits to them, and they all have their quirks, and they all have their negatives. Some of it's bull crap, I think. But it's interesting to talk to guys like you that have Griff because they kind of get a bad rap. And not so much like people think they're beautiful, but like I don't know if you find this as well, but I find people that are upland guys, that are dog training guys, they think that Griffs are like they kind of group them with like Brittany's. There's nothing wrong with Brittany's. It's another little slower working dog.
They're more methodical.
Yeah, like the princess. They would say like they're the princess of the field, but it's like you see, like everybody jokes about my Griff because like she doesn't. They're like, won't tell her, but she doesn't know she's not a short hair. She's lived with a short hair her whole life.
Sure.
It's like they're not all like that. It's like people aren't all what people think they are. So it's crazy to talk to guys that are like, I would never get a Griff. Well, why not? Well, I don't know. It's just gonna fuck with the hair. I mean, it does fuck with the hair, but it's not like
it's not the end of the world. It's not. But see that, like you said, there are trade-offs because one thing I really do love about her is she is methodical and she works close, and I love watching my dog work. Big running dogs are awesome. Like to get a dog that runs big, but some of the stuff I hunt, like the woodcock covers I hunt, I mean, it's great, but I'm not going to see the dog work, and it's going to take me forever to get up there to catch up to that point. I mean, I love watching a close working dog. That might come from having a lab for so long too, because you have to keep it close because it's a flushing dog. So I love just being able to watch my dog work in thick cover. And so that was one of the reasons why I went with a Griff, because I knew from what I had read, they are a closer working dog. Normally that's their average. They're methodical. I like methodical because I like leaving an area knowing that if we didn't move a bird, there probably wasn't a bird there. Whereas I've been with people that have dogs that are moving so fast constantly. Like I know I've watched my lab move woodcock behind them because the dog blew right past that bird. And with grouse, they would bump them, right? Because grouse don't like pressure. But woodcock, a big running dog that is like more focused on like running than birds, they'll go right by a woodcock because that woodcock will just sit.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with you there. Yep. I mean, the shorter is big running, not to a fault. Like she's just faster. She stays close. She hunts pretty close, but she's faster. There's no time for screwing around with her. I mean, not that she's gonna flush a bird, but you get my point.
I know exactly what you're saying.
But the style, like I'm sure you and I have a different hunting style.
Right.
So we would pick apart cover differently, and that's what my dogs do. They're picking apart cover differently, and I like talking to Griff guys because they are so similar. Like I bet if I picked apart 5 quirks that my Griff had, I bet your Griff has at least 3 of them.
Probably.
Like, case in point, does your Griff always have to have something in it?
No. Well, take that back. Like if we're out on the river and I've been throwing a bumper, that bumper's in her mouth the whole time. Or she'll lay down and if she stands back up, bumper's right back in her mouth. We joke around that it's her nook.
So like if somebody comes over, the dog gets excited, he has to pick something up and have it in her mouth. You just have to. And like I know 3 guys in Griff, they're all the exact same. And it's funny to tell the difference. Everybody thinks he just has these dogs. And I'm not saying me, but you talk to people like it's just like that's their breed standard. That's just what they do. That's just that's it's part of their breed. That's what they do as a breed. Like if you have a herding dog, they're gonna constantly nip you in the calf. That's what they do. They don't like fast movement. That's just how they are. Right. And if you have a Griffin, they have these little quirks that as a breed they have that because they were all bred. And I mean, it's cool to talk to other people that have a white dog, and they get such a bad rap because of the long hair and all the maintenance that everybody thinks that they have with it. And it's a small group of people. Like I think I read that interesting statistic about Griff that there was like under 150 of them whelped last year in the United States.
Wow. I believe it because breeders are not that common, especially when you get like the good hunting line breeders. They're not that common, and they're not cracking out litters like some of these lab guys do and everything else. And nothing against lab breeders. That's not what I'm saying, but I'm saying it's very select breeding. It seems like from a very limited number of breeders.
Yeah. And I should forward you this article that I just read about the history of Griffs. And it's actually very interesting.
I would like that. And to touch base on what you mentioned about training, Griffs are a very different dog to train because they're extremely smart. At least mine is extremely smart, almost to the point of being stubborn, but she's not stubborn. She's a soft dog. Mm-hmm. Like I think the best way I've ever heard it explained for a Griff, training a Griff, is you need a heavy hand and a white glove.
That's honestly, I've heard that before too. And that's exactly what it is because the things that I can do on the Force-Fetch table with my short hair, I could not do. There's no way I could pull it off with my Griff. Like she would turn herself inside out to get away from it. And I'm not talking about like the kind of pressure that you would call PETA about. This thing, like you apply a little bit of pressure on my Griff turns inside out. He just doesn't want to, but you have to be stern because otherwise they're going to walk all over. So it's like, that's the best analogy I've ever heard about it as well.
I mean, it's hard because you're not training a stubborn dog, so you can't use any type of like forceful tactics. And I'm not saying force like hurting the dog. That's not what I'm saying. But you can't just let them do their own thing because they're smart enough. They'll walk right over you and they'll take charge. I mean, it's a very unique training, like training with a Griff. It's challenging. It is challenging. It's a challenging breed to train. And because of that, I don't know if I would recommend one for a first-time trainer.
No, absolutely not. And realistically, if I was going to read it, I would probably recommend if you were going to get your very first dog, let's say you were set on a versatile breed, I would probably go with a short hair because a good short hair is easiest to find. Like wire hairs, all those other dogs, it seems hard to find a good breeder. Short hairs seem to be they're not few and far between. You can find good short hairs all over the place. They're easy to train. You can screw up with a short hair and still the dog will still turn out. It's not too late. With a griff, if you're too heavy-handed, like I said, that dog's just going to implode, and you're just gonna, you know, anybody can train an easy dog. Any dog that can take pressure, anybody can train that. It's the dogs like a Griffin where you can really find out if you are a good trainer, because if you have a good Griffin that does stuff that other Griffins don't, you're probably a pretty good trainer because you've figured out ways to, you know, weasel through those loopholes that most Griffins like and all that other stuff. So you're right. I would not recommend a Griffin for bird hunting as your first dog.
I would agree. I mean, like you said, short hairs, very forgiving. I mean, very forgiving. Labs, very forgiving. There's just breeds out there that aren't forgiving, and you can't have a bad day with them. Like some of the mistakes I made in my lab when I'm younger, I could never make those mistakes with my Griff, or she would never forget it. She wouldn't. Like, she wouldn't cuddle up next to me afterwards and be like, "It's all right. You had a bad day. We had a bad day training." No, you can't have that bad day. Like, you have to be mature enough. And that's another thing I'll say, I guess, not being your first dog is also, you need to be mature enough as a trainer to know when to walk away. Like, if it's not going right, you're better off, rather than forcing the situation with a Griff, you got to walk away and try again. Like, even if it's a little break, like, you got to reset. Cause I know my Griff has a memory.
Or you got to back up and give them something positive. I found
right.
that I'm not necessarily a negative reinforcement trainer, but I'm definitely not a positive reinforcement trainer. And I think even if you have to back up a couple steps and give them something positive, I have to be very positive with my Griff all the time to keep her energy and her, you know, excitement level up. As soon as her excitement level's down and this is too much work, she's checking out, and we're not going to get anywhere real quick. I have to keep her excited about and interested in training at hand, or, you know, we're done. So, like, a lot of these things, like the things that I really struggle with her about is you know, like a duck search where there's not that instant gratification. Like, anytime there's a gun involved, so if we go and she's steady to flush, shot, fall, and retrieve the hand, but there's that instant gratification. She's smelling that bird, and she's seeing that bird, and she's retrieving the bird that I had just shot. That's fine, you know. But like duck search, where she's got to go out, get into the swamp and search for, 15, 20 minutes before she finds them, and then bring the duck back. Those are the things that she struggles with, because she's like, I'm bored. I'm moving on.
Right.
That's a really hard thing to do for her.
And when they're and if they're bored, it's really hard to train, because you can't apply like your normal pressure. Like, you can't. I mean, so you can't apply pressure. So you have to figure out a way to make that excitement there. Which, on a duck search like that, I've watched that. That's not an easy thing to train that for some dogs. I mean, especially like what you're saying with a Griff, because if they're not excited about it, you can't push them to do it. You got to figure out how to make them want to do it.
Well, and like you said before, there's such a close working, methodical dog to take that and flip that around in their head, where, okay, so 20 minutes ago I wanted you to stay close, hunt birds, and stay on point, don't break point, stay steady, and then bring back the hand. Now, 20 minutes later, I expect you to go out, search for a duck 20 minutes away from me without any command. That's a hard thing to teach anybody, especially
right.
a close working dog like a Griffin. It's a very hard thing to do. And that's one thing that people can't understand, that you can't. So then when that doesn't work out, the normal way of training duck search or something like that doesn't work out, now you can't just lose it in the dog, because like you said, they've got a memory. They remember that,
right.
And for whatever reason, I feel like my Griff really, she thrives off of my energy. So if I'm nervous, if I'm upset, she can sense that more so than my short hair. My short hair will work through anything. I mean, she's a tough dog, and she doesn't care if I'm in a bad mood. She's gonna go hunt, because that's what she does. But
sure.
Griff, she seems to read off my energy. So she blew up a bird or something, and now I'm a little upset. She's sensing that, so now she's hunting a little bit more cautiously or staying closer or something like that. So that's the difference. It's reading these inconsistencies in the dog is so hard to do, and that's what makes a good or bad trainer, is being able to read those things. Like you said, you got a dog that was a rescue, and you knew the first thing to do is to make sure that dog was going to be able to coexist with you. more so than being that dog in the field and pounding on birds all the time. You know, you had your priorities straight, therefore the dog worked out. Had you gone the opposite direction, we don't know for sure, but might not have gone the right way.
Exactly. I mean, we did bond over training, which helped. I mean, just going back to basic obedience. I mean, that was a great way for us to bond. Great exercise is a good thing. I mean, working dogs need exercise. That all like played a part into it. But yeah, you're right. We had to make sure we could coexist as a family before I could worry about making sure she was a good hunting dog. And that took a back table. And I can see it now because she's older now and there's things that she doesn't do as well as I would like. But I had to take one. I had priorities that were far more important than having an amazing hunting dog, because she couldn't be in a family with us, she could be the greatest hunting dog in the world, but she couldn't be in our family then, right? I mean, like, it wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah, I mean, and if you don't have, if you have to get rid of the dog, you can't have a hunting dog. If you don't have it, if you don't have a dog, you don't have a hunting dog, right? So it's like, you know, the one thing I will say to kind of loop back to clubs is the beauty of clubs is there's training days all year. So not all year, but like, you know, late winter, early spring, it starts up. You train all summer long. You test in the fall, and your dog has been on bird all year long. And it's not like now magically, you know, middle of August rolls around, the dog's been sitting on the couch for, you know, 6 months, hasn't even seen a bird, done nothing but watch, you know, Dora the Explorer with the kids, and now you magically want to get the dog out to go hunt birds. So you have those months worth of training days where even if you're not going to test, which I find it hard to believe that people won't. If you've gone through the training process, most people tend to want to test their dog. But even if you don't, you're going to get out there and your dog's going to be on top of the world. It doesn't take much to have the kind of dog that you take, you know, Harry, your buddy, who barely ever hunts upland birds, he sees your dog work and he's like, oh my God, that's the best dog I've ever seen in my entire life. It doesn't take much to get that response out of people. Like,
I agree.
Like a dog that points, holds till the shot is like 100% better than 90% of pointing dogs out there in the whole entire world. And I think I read and I don't quote me on this, I did read it somewhere, I don't remember if it was in the forum or whatever, but only 10% of all pointing dogs ever pass and nav the utility path. So that means 90% of all the dogs out there never even get run through the utility path.
Sure.
So if you have a dog that does that, you have the upper 90% of all dogs. I mean, like, think about that. That's mind blowing, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's my pro to these hunting clubs. Anything, AKC, NAVDA is one that I belong to. NASDRA, there's hundreds of them. You can pick one. They have just German Shorthair Club of America, you know, Wirehair Griffin Club of America.
Right.
They have these, and there's local clubs. I mean, we have 3-4 clubs within an hour and a half drive of us. I could pick any single one of them. And they have birds, they have all the equipment, they have training days set up. Most of them have knowledgeable people that are there that can help you with it. And when you get to hunting season, your dog is going to be 100 times better than your dog would have been if you're just sitting without season. So that's my shameless plug for, you know, NAVDA or AKC or anything like that, because we want to see you have success.
And that's a good point too. Like, don't be nervous about going there as a trainer, like as a person that's never trained a dog before. Even if you started on your own, like even if you started and your dog's 2 years old and like, you're like, I don't know what to do. That's fine. Go. I mean, when I first joined that HRC, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. I had a 9-month-old lab. I didn't have a clue. And they welcomed me with open arms. There was no judgment. And that's one thing I felt like, even when I went and like worked with the Madison Club for those 2 times before I even had a dog, like there was no judgment from anyone there. They were all happy that you chose that route, because anybody I've talked to that has been in any one of these types of clubs wants to see more people in the clubs, because at the end of the day, we all want what's best for the dogs. And that experience from all these trainers to help you and to help these new trainers along is what we want. Like, we don't want we don't want you to fail as a trainer. We want to help you succeed as a trainer. So don't be nervous. Like, for anybody out there who's listening, who's on the fence, like, oh, I don't know what to do, or man, my dog is so far gone. It's not. Just go.
No,
like,
you can teach an old dog new tricks. You can teach a young dog new tricks. And like potty training for puppies for dummies is not always the answer. I mean, every dog is different. Some dogs, you can watch that teaser guy all you want, and he's a great dog trainer, but he's not in your house.
Right.
Like get somewhere hands-on where somebody can help you with your dog, because we all have problems, and we were all, like you said, we were all there at one point. Like at one point, the best dog trainer in the world, as George Hickok at one point, had never seen a dog. Had never.
Right.
At some point, he was having his first dog, and he didn't learn this all. He didn't make this up. He's just perfecting it. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
don't be afraid to ask for help, because that's what those clubs are there for. And you're going to be happier. Like for many reasons, you're going to put more birds in the bag, and you're going to not have to yell at your dog, and you're going to enjoy your time more. And what's not to love of it? Yeah, it'll cost a little bit of money, but not how you're going to spend it on something stupid anyway. So you might as well go out there and do
In the
something useful.
in the grand scheme of things, that's not a big drop in that bucket when it comes to owning a dog. There's far greater expenses in owning a dog than working with a local club.
To loop back around and talk about what we were talking about before, like how many of these guys that have these bird dogs are just going to go run them in game farms anyway? And
Right.
You and I both know what it costs to, go and hunt birds at a game farm. So, like, if you're already going to spend that large chunk of money, why wouldn't you want to impress the guys there with a good dog? You don't have to send your dog to a professional trainer for $10,000 to have a good dog. You can do it yourself. So it's
Agreed.
I don't think a lot of people know that. Like, they don't know that there's that avenue, that there's guys out there like me that are not professional dog trainers, that have dogs, that go hunting with people where they do think that their dogs are professionally trained. So there's other options. It's not, you don't have to pay somebody to do it. You don't have to have a crappy dog. So it's like, I wish more people knew that.
I've been a big proponent of clubs. Every time on Facebook, different forums back in the day, every time I saw a post about a new hunter, the first thing, like a new dog trainer, join a club. And if you don't want to join a club, work with a train the trainer type program, something to help you, because at the end of the day, it's for the dog. Like, if you don't want to join the club, fine, I get that. But I have a friend that's a train the trainer. I mean, he has his own kennel. He's a professional trainer, and he normally won't just take your dog and train it. He wants you there. He's going to train you on how to train your dog. I mean, there's programs like that as well. I mean, there's so many different avenues out there that you don't have to just send your dog away for 6 months.
Well, how many dogs do you know that have got sent away to a trainer? The trainer does the work, and then the dog comes back, and 3 months later, the dog doesn't do crap because the guy doesn't know what he's doing. But your friend doing it that way, that's the way that you have to do it. You have to train the person. I don't believe there is no such thing as bad dogs, there's just bad owners. So
I've heard that as well.
You need to know what you're doing as well, And there's a funny thing that we always say about it. Very rarely do we have people come with a bird dog, with dog training, but we only see them once a quarter. Generally, these people are coming year in and year out. And I've been training with the same group of guys for 5 years. Most of them, the number just keeps getting bigger. You get more and more guys every year. And the first year you show up, you just have your normal pickup truck and a dog. And then the next year, you got a cap on the back of your truck. And then you got a crate in the back. And the next year you show up, you got like the big dog box in the back. And then you've got the exact system. And you got, then the year after that, these guys are showing up with like dog trailers, and they've got 3-pointers and stuff like that. It's just this obsession that just keeps growing. And before you know it, it's like you're like, man, I'm like neck deep in this bird hunting world, and I love it.
I mean, it's a great thing too. Like, for people that love to upland hunt, it's a great thing to do in the off season because it keeps it centered and focused. Like, that's one thing this podcast has done for me. I'm so much more excited this year about hunting than I have been any other year because I'm constantly talking hunting. And that's the one thing I forgot about when I worked with a club was there was constant talk. You were always driving, like you were always training your dog to go hunting. That's what we're doing. And like, it makes the season, like the anticipation and the excitement build all that much more because it's constantly front and center in your mind.
Well, the beauty of these hunting clubs, these dog training clubs, we're not training our dogs to do stupid crap like roll over that they don't need to do. And by all means, train your dog to roll over. But like, these are practical things that these dogs need to know how to do. Like, if you live in Iowa and you drop a pheasant in an ice-cold body of water, are you just come out there and get it? No.
Right.
Or such a very good thing then, because your dog will go get it because they were trained to do that. Or
Right.
a duck search, you wound a duck and it's swimming around, you think your dog can go do it. We're not training our dogs to do things that aren't practical. These are all hunting, related activities that they need to know how to do to have this kind of dog that is going to blow your mind.
I agree. I think on that note, I think we're going to wrap her up. I mean, NAVD has been a great thing. Let's find out how can people find you on Instagram, Facebook? How can people find you?
You can find me. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook once in a while. I'm
Sure.
more of an Instagram platform type guy. You can either find me I'm just at Tate Abler, or you can find me at Sustained Outdoors. Those are both just kind of what I do back and forth. I'm not huge into it. Those are my platforms. You can find me at Tate Abler on Facebook as well if you're looking. I may or may not be there.
I get it. Instagram's far less bull crap when at the end of the day.
Exactly. I don't need to, at least when I go on Instagram, I'm not stressed out and
right.
people's bird dogs and girl pictures and go to sleep. So,
is there anybody you want to thank?
I just want to say I appreciate you having me on here. That was it's been a great time, great conversation, and I hope that people hope that they give upland hunting a chance. Not too many of you, just a couple of you. But,
I'm going to be selfish about this. I want to mentor people, but not too many people.
Yeah, and it's kind of the age-old thing. Take somebody hunting, but take somebody out there. Show them, especially this day and age, with all the crap that's going on right now. Take somebody out there and get them out there, and take somebody. If you're going training, take them with you. And everybody should get a pointer. That's the only thing that I think that I would like to express. Everybody.
Love it. Well, man, I really appreciate you being on. The conversation's been great. I think it's going to really open up a lot of people's eyes that listen to it about how special and what versatile the clubs are to really make a better dog.
Oh yeah, and I think that a good dog makes a good person. You know what I mean? So I always tell everybody, lock your dog in the trunk and lock your wife in the trunk for an hour and open the trunk up. Which one's happy to see you? A better person. You know what I mean?
I do.
It's been a long time since I locked my wife in the trunk. So.
Well, that's good to know.
I think everybody should just think about it. If you're already into upland hunting, think about blizzards. And if you're already into hunting, there's not that many people upland hunting. It's a good way to get out. It's a good way to get after it. So I think that's a pretty good way for everybody to enjoy themselves. So.
Agreed, and it's good for the entire family because they all can take part.
Yep, agreed.
Well, I appreciate you being on, and to everyone else, thanks again for listening. I can't do it without you guys, and I know I say that every time, but I seriously appreciate everyone that tunes in weekly to listen to me rant on with random people. I mean, it's great, and with the conversation's great. So until next time.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle_and fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle_and fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. Shout out to Jigmasters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com